Hello and welcome. It's the fourth year of the Tour of Azerbaijan in its current incarnation, and we're getting set for stage one. 154 kilometers in total from Baku to Sumgayit. Total of 50 kilometers on the finishing circuit, 5 by 10 kilometers. There's the route profile for the riders this afternoon as they head out on this latest edition of a fast-developing race in a nation that is starting to develop a real heritage in the sport. Head out from Baku, out into the countryside along the coast, and then back towards the finishing town of Sumgayit. And that finishing circuit I mentioned 5 times round, 10 kilometers, so plenty of opportunity for the spectators this afternoon to witness top-class bike racing in this Asian country, which is really getting the hang of bike racing. As I say, the fourth incarnation of the race in this current situation. Crystal Hall played host to the Eurovision Song Contest back in 2012 when Sweden were the victors, as my partner in commentary this evening, Magnus Backstedt, was just telling me. And look at the sort of infrastructure that has been developing in this nation over the last few years. Of course, the European Games, Baku European Games, will be taking place in the city this summer. Balmy conditions for the riders, 19 degrees centigrade, and the humidity not too high. A little bit of wind out there, but nothing too troubling, just enough to lift the biggest flag in the world. And there's a Grand Tour race winner among the competitors this afternoon. Chris Horner, who's really struggled to get a team over the winter, has managed to locate a berth for the season, and he'll be taking part with Dossard 51 Airgas Safeway cycling team as the riders make their way away from Baku this morning. That is a big flag by any measure of means. That is the biggest flag in the world, I believe. It's right up there. And the fare for this morning, well, the riders heading out in what is anticipated to be a sprint stage. Plenty of climbing options for the riders later on in the week. 5 days in total. Over 800 kilometers of top racing action. Tomorrow's stage from Baku to Ismaili is 187 kilometers hilly. And then there's a big mountain stage on Saturday, the penultimate stage. 115 kilometers only, but it really packs in the climbs. So a little bit of everything for the riders. No time trial and no time bonuses, so that's sure to make the racing pretty interesting all the way to the flag each afternoon. And as you can see, the attacks coming right from the get-go this morning. Taking a little while for the early break to establish itself. Passage of the Bibi Heibat Mosque, built in the 13th century. And today again a place of pilgrimage. Not that the riders have any opportunity to take account of the sights along the way. Clearly the way that they're strung out there indicating just how hard the racing is. A little bit more compact as we see the riders a little bit further on, heading through Gubistan National Park and past the mud volcanoes, which well, haven't got anything to do with the volcanic activity. Here's just a sign of the Gubistan petroglyphs. They're not actually on the race circuit. They're a little bit removed, about 30 kilometers away, but this is a World Heritage Site, UNESCO World Heritage Site, an extraordinary petroglyphs from the Stone Age. More than 6,000 of them carved on rocks dating back as much as 15,000 BC. And there's the mud volcanoes I mentioned. As I say, not actually volcanoes as such. It's all to do with oil and gas reserves and compression underground that swells upwards and gives us this extraordinary vista. Biggest amount of mud volcanoes in the world, they tell us. Back to the racing. 85 kilometers in, the riders making their way past Lake Masazir. Just one climb on the route this afternoon, a Cat 3 ascent. It's establishing a mountains classification, but not really in any sense this a mountain stage. Down by the coast, plenty of breakers there, indicating that there's a little bit of wind out there, making it just a little bit testy for the riders as they work their way back towards the finishing town. Finally, a breakaway establishes itself. And the first passage of the finish line as they arrive into the finishing town. 3 riders clear. Escaping from the clutches of the peloton, Elchin Azadov from the local Synergy Baku squad. Synergy Baku cycling project headed up by Jeremy Hunt. And David McQuaid running the show there. DSing for them is Jeremy Hunt, and doing a fine job indeed as well, because they've got a rider in the break and plenty of riders with ambitions for stage and overall honours. And Magnus, this sport really is developing in Azerbaijan. This race is starting to gain a real foothold in the cycling calendar. It's a great opportunity for riders, young and old, to develop their skills and their opportunities.
Well, cycling is growing worldwide, and you know, it's good to see that it's stretching out to these parts of the world as well. And certainly, you know, with the professional team that they have, then it seems to be growing from year to year, and certainly getting some very good riders on board as well. You know, I think there's some interesting racing to be done over here.
Absolutely, and we've seen quite a bit of it in the last few years. Elchin Azadov, as I mentioned, has made it into the break. He's the reigning national champion of Azerbaijan. 3 times national time trial champion, won the road race last year as well. And the Hungarian national team is also represented in the breakaway group, which managed to establish a maximum advantage of over 5 minutes. That Zoltan Sipos has actually only been a Hungarian national since 2014. He's twice a national champion of Romania, twice second in the national time trial championships of Romania, but now very much a Hungarian citizen. And Chris Williams from Australia, racing with Novo Nordisk, the 33-year-old. Novo Nordisk, one of 2 American teams that have visited Azerbaijan. First time that that this race has had American representation. All up for the break. Brave effort. Managed to garner some points. I can tell you Azadov took the single climb of the day, and with it the mountains jersey, so he'll be looking forward to collecting that on the podium a little bit later on. But the group is soon towed back, and clearly the pace is high, and the sprinters teams, Magnus, have only one thought in mind, and that's making sure that they keep it nice and fast through to the finish.
Yeah, no doubt. You know, there are a couple of teams here who got some very good sprinters, and I'm thinking primarily Androni Giocattoli, who've got Francesco Chicchi in here, but also Adria Mobile with Marco Kump as well, who really, you know, 2 outstandingly fast men.
Yeah, 2 big names from World Tour racing, from big continental races, so this they'll certainly be looked to by the local teams and by some of the smaller outfits to see what's going to happen from Androni Giocattoli. And indeed from Adria Mobile. Marco Kump, as Magnus has mentioned, is back in the fold there. A couple of years with Tinkoff Saxo. Hasn't quite happened for him, so he's moved back to Adria Mobile. He's having a pretty good year. He's had a couple of wins under his belt so far. Another couple of riders trying their luck off the front and establishing a narrow advantage, but there doesn't seem to be much enthusiasm from the bunch to allow something go clear, having towed back the early break.
No, certainly not on a circuit like this. You want to make sure that you sort of keep the pace relatively high, and it always gets driven high as well by the corners, and riders wanted to move up into position in for every turn, and with that, you know, the pace just gets driven higher and higher and higher. So if you want to go clear on a circuit like this, you need to be absolutely flying and taking some pretty big risks on every single turn as well.
Interesting to see Radoslav Regina in there from Adria Mobile. So he's taking the heat off Marco Kump's teammates a little bit, so that will put it up to some of the other teams to do the chasing, and that will leave some fresher legs in amongst Adria Mobile for trying to set something up for Marco Kump at the back end of the stage. So useful bit of work being performed by Radoslav Regina. 36 years of age now. He's 4th in this race 12 months ago. So he's got good legs. It's interesting that he's testing them with what looks like a futile break. He's got for company 26-year-old Belarusian Andrei Krasilnikov of the Minsk Cycling Club. Belarus national road race champion in 2013, so he's no mean performer. That would not be an easy national road race championships to win. And these two riders have been given a little bit of leeway. Clearly, Regina is going particularly well. Looks over his shoulder to see if he's going to get any sort of contribution from Krasilnikov, but they're working reasonably well at the moment. The motorbike slots in behind them, indicating that they have a decent advantage, probably more than 30 seconds at this point. Hanging out of a big gear, large and appreciative crowd who've come out to Sumkayit this afternoon. A little bit of cobbled road for them to put up with, nothing too testing in terms of terrain.
Well, it's always difficult when you got the cobbles on the finishing straight and having to sprint on this sort of stuff. It's all about how you get the drive, and if you find a smooth line when you get out of the saddle, because your bike tends to sort of move around an awful lot. So it suits certain types of sprinters that have got a specific style.
So those riders have a narrow advantage, but look at the way the peloton is stretched out. We'll have the next part of stage one after these. It's stage one of Tour of Azerbaijan, and these two riders still hanging on like grim death out front of a fast chasing bunch. We're in the town of Sumkayit, 154 kilometers for the riders this afternoon, 5 times around a 10-kilometer circuit in the finishing town. And the teams on the front of the bunch, plenty of evidence of Adria Mobil there. Drapak and Rusvelo also well to the fore as they try to set up their sprinters at the back end. So Marco Kump, we've already mentioned. Franco Kiki's been around a while now, this year now with Androni Giocattoli. And those two riders have pretty much been closed down, but just as I say it, Krasilnikov not satisfied with going back into the bunch. Regina realizes his work is done at this point. And Krasilnikov has a little look around over his shoulder and thinks, well, that was a little bit foolhardy, but he's the last man standing from the breakaway as the bunch now think about the wind-up for the big sprint. Tightly compacted group at the moment. No team able to really impose its authority in any big way. Great effort from Regina and from Krasilnikov. Ultimately comes to naught, but they've got their jersey on television, they've got their name on race radio. They mentioned in the tweets and showed what they're capable of. 5th passage of the finish line, that indicates we're going to get the bell now. So just inside the final 10 kilometers of this first stage of Tour of Azerbaijan. Across the cobbles, and that's going to make the sprint a little bit sketchier, a little bit more hairy.
Well, I don't know if it's more hairy, but it's just more difficult to get a good drive on the bike, and it really depends on how you get onto the stones and if how you sort of land the first pedal stroke on the cobblestones itself, and whether you're up to speed already or whether you're trying to accelerate on the stones as well.
More of a sit-down sprint than out of the saddle, John?
Well, some people can actually do this properly by standing up. Other people prefer to just do it seated, and it's down to each individual rider what works for them. I know, for instance, someone like Francesco Chicchi definitely would try and stand up and do this sprint, although his position, he doesn't mind the bike moving around underneath him. But obviously that's something that you're trying to make it not do.
So that's how much weight that you're getting over the back wheel when you're really putting the power down. If you're the rider that tends to nod the head forward and over the stem, well, it might actually be one of those rare occasions when that goes against you.
Yeah, all the teams are getting organised here now, trying to line themselves up for a big lead-up for this final sprint.
Side of Post chain reactions towards the front. The Sean Kelly organised team in the green on the front, and they've got Conor Dunn, the imposing figure. He's a great lead-out man for them. One of the tallest riders in professional bike racing. Brian Mullins in their group as well, 2nd in the under-23 World Championships, and of course, the national champion of Ireland as well.
Getting on the front a fraction early, I think, to start really putting the pace down. 7 kilometers. It's the difficulty when you're doing a circuit race like this is to keep things under control, keep calm, stay back about 10-15th wheel, and let everyone do their stuff and still be confident enough that you can get yourself out at a later stage. it's not an easy thing to do, and that's why most times you end up getting to the front, all eager to press on. But with 6 kilometers to go, you're gonna need a good, you know, 10 men in front of you to in front of the sprinter to be able to keep any kind of pace where you can keep the rest of the peloton behind you.
So Ryan Mullen and Conor Dunn just rolling through. Absolutely enormous bike ride. It's about 6'7". He's suffered in the time trials due to that particular regulation imposed that really means that he's has to bend himself in two to try and get into a position that's legal.
Looks like he could do with a slightly bigger road frame as well, to be honest.
Well, they do make a special frame for him. He's specifically, yeah, I do know that Chain Reactions do make a Vitas frame specifically for him, but it's an absolute giant. He's a giant, isn't he? I mean, even by Magnus Backstead standards, he's a big guy.
He's big boy.
So on post, Chain Reactions bossing the peloton at the moment, but can they hang on? They've still got 6 kilometers remaining. Have they gone too early? The Androni Giocattoli squad are starting to just sniff out a little bit from the main peloton.
Well, I could see just on a couple of pictures earlier that Francesco Chicchi has already found Marco Kump's wheel and moving around with Kump.
Well, Marco Kump with stage victory in Tour of Croatia among several wins so far this season. He's on fire, looking for a quick return back to the World Tour. Adria Mobil, his squad, of course, they're in the red and blue.
Yeah, red with a blue right shoulder.
And the Drapac professional cycling squad from Australia also very much in evidence, but it's on post Chain Reactions at the moment. Question is, can they do this all the way to the line? Will they be able to?
Well, at the moment, I think they're all happy. All the teams behind them are happy to let these guys take up the riding and keep the pace making going. It means that they got more riders at a later stage to when you really need to up the pace.
Peloton all strung out inside the final 6 kilometers of stage 1 of Tour of Azerbaijan 2015. And the big squad, Synergy Baku, on the right-hand side of picture. The local team, they'll also be very keen to try and present their sprinter. Maxime Avarin is also in pretty good form so far this year, and that team will be very, very fired up. The local squad, financed by the government with the intention of presenting riders through to the Olympics in Rio de Janeiro next year. So far, very much on target, and this team has developed over the last 2 or 3 years. On post Chain Reaction, just losing control of the peloton. Brave effort to try and set something up. Looks like Team Dukla Prague have got themselves into position on the front. Conor Dunn just slots into 3rd place, so he's still full of fight.
Yeah, quite a big increase in pace there now with 4 kilometers left to go of this stage.
Hard left-hander, the bunch compressed.
Motorbike's got his work cut out to stay ahead of the bike riders going through these corners.
And just a little look over his shoulder, just realizing that he's stretching this one a little bit thin, and maybe they've hit the front a little bit early as well. Inside the final 4 kilometers, and no sign of the heavy hitters that we'd expected to see up to the front. They're managing to keep their powder dry. They're not rushing it. They're just behind the very pointy part of the arrowhead. Absolutely the perfect position to be in at the moment for the leading squads, Androni Giocattoli, and we're expecting to see Adria Mobil towards the front as well. Synergy Baku, as we said, already massing towards the front on the left-hand side, those dark jerseys with the white flash. Maxime Avarin, the local rider. Androni Giocattoli starting to move up on the right-hand side of the road. That's Benfato that's leading out Francesco Chicchi as we see a big surge towards the front.
Yeah, this is the time when it's really difficult to stay in contact with your teammates as you're trying to sort out any kind of a lead out, and you know, the pace dropped off for a second, and everyone starts fighting it and really trying to sort of gain a good position and without staying in the wind as well.
It's Rinkov, Adverik's cycling team, massing towards the front. And this is a poker game, isn't it? This is a poker at 60, 70 kilometers an hour, because they're absolutely flat chat at the moment, and it's about keeping your powder dry for the longest possible moment. We see Drapak cycling, Rusfello also to the fore with the Drakaf professional cycling team from Australia in the red jerseys on the right-hand side of picture.
Yeah, they're still staying very, very well together and calm. And we've just seen Ben Fato and Francesco Chicchi there with the white backs just behind the three red riders, just making sure that they're in a good position. And I think, you know, it's all coming down. It's very much a chance today who's going to get themselves out there and actually find some clear road. 1.6 kilometers to go, and Baku gets to the front.
So Synergy Baku Cycling Project have gone to the front, and the Frinkhoff Adverich cycling team from Austria are swamped by the peloton. Just surged a little bit early, didn't have quite have it. So now Maxime Averin is going to be presented in the perfect position. Androni Giocattoli also starting to appear towards the front on the left-hand side of picture. Just a few moments ago, we saw them on the right, how quickly it changed. The bright blue jerseys, that's the national team of Kazakhstan. As they hit the kite, just 1,000 meters left in stage one of Tour of Azerbaijan. Stretching it thin at the front, Drapak have managed to get in control of the bunch. Bernie Sulzberger, of course, amongst their number, and he's no mean performer when it comes to a sprint finish. Can they get him into a perfect position? And lots of aggression in there.
Yeah, still only ones and twos, though, and this means that it's all very, very difficult as Matej Mugerli goes up the right-hand side there for Baku.
Yeah, that's pretty aggressive stuff from Drapak, but Synergy Baku have still managed to get control of the bunch, as Maxime Averin being presented in perfect position by Mugerli, and his teammate Tamaridis, the former Greek champion, hits the front now as he gets control of the bunch, but for how much longer? Because Averin coming into the final corner and running for the line with just 500 meters remaining in stage one of Tour of Azerbaijan. The peloton is stretched thin by the local team, Synergy Baku Cycling Project. Will Averin be able to hang on? Have they gone too early? Tamaridis just has a little look over his shoulder and sends Averin on his way. Will he be able to manage it? Because here comes Marco Kump, the Adria Mobile rider, racing for the line. Little look over his shoulder. It's all too easy. Marco Kump gets his hands in the air and takes stage one of Tour of Azerbaijan. The rider from Adria Mobile had time to look over his shoulder before he threw his arms in the air. It looks as if Francesco Chicchi has got up for second for Androni Giocattoli, the Italian veteran, not quite able to manage it on the cobbles at the conclusion of today's stage in Sumkayit. But joy aplenty for the Adria Mobile squad. It's another victory this year for Marco Kump, and surely a return to World Tour racing can't be far behind. Kump, 26 years of age, makes it 6 wins for the season, and has to settle himself a little bit, which indicates just how difficult the terrain is under wheel. But look at the advantage he has. Bike lengths clear of the rest. Synergy Baku looked like they'd done it to absolute perfection going through the final turn, but Maxime Averin hit the front, I think, just a little bit early, and ready to pounce was Marco Kump. Chicchi just not quite able to get to him.
No, it just looks like Chicchi's coming from slightly too far behind. It was a very messy final kilometer or so of this sprint. The riders going from left to right of the road, and you know, quite a few near misses, if we should call it that, where a few riders almost came a
pretty aggressive stuff in there as well.
Yeah, no, definitely.
So 26-year-old Slovenian Marco Kump takes the victory. Stage win in Tour of Croatia. Trofeo Zisi in Italy, Trofeo Umag in Croatia, GP Adria Mobile. It's been a pretty good year from this. I think probably his best win right up there. Francesco Chicchi gets up for second. Averin has to make do with a good third for the local team. Zanotti, Hockman, Harakovic, Castrantis, Cardoso, and the rest through the top 10. And a proud moment for the 26-year-old Slovenian, who will wear the leader's jersey into the second stage. A satisfying moment for Marco Kump.
How went the sprint for you? Actually, in the last corner, that's about 500 meters to go. I was a bit, I was far behind, but I knew that this had to be a long sprint because it's there were two corners in the last 200 meters. So once you're in front, it's much easier. So yeah, I went full gas, 300 meters to go, and that's it.
So satisfaction for Adrian Mobile and for Marco Kump. He's produced the first victory of the 2015 Tour of Azerbaijan. He wears the leader's jersey into stage 2. Joy plenty throughout the field. Azadov will be satisfied with wearing the Mountains jersey. And Kiki second, well, he'll wear the points jersey tomorrow on behalf of the overall race leader, Marco Kump. So that's it from myself and Magnus. We'll be back for tomorrow's second stage. Please do join us then. Baku to Ismaili from Magnus and myself now. Goodbye.